Just jumping in here quickly to let you guys know that I have recently created a Facebook group for listeners of the Live, Train, Perform podcast. So this private forum is the place to connect with other podcast listeners and guests, as well as to interact with myself and other coaches who have provided content for the Coach's Corner episodes. So in this forum, you can ask questions, which I can then answer in the group, or I can use them for episodes for my Q&A sessions, post relevant articles, you can share memes. The goal is to create a network of like-minded people so that everyone can interact with each other. You guys, the listeners, the audience members, can interact with a network of professionals in the fitness industry that have provided good quality content for the podcast. To gain access to this private group, all you need to do is leave me a rating and review. What this does is allows me to bump up the ratings, draw bigger names, bigger guests to the podcast for your listening pleasure. Once you've left a rating and review, take a screenshot of that, send that through to my Instagram at coach_Kobes, Kobes. Once you've done that, go onto Facebook, type in Live, Train, Perform. That group will come up, request access, answer the 3 questions, and I will grant you access. Thanks, guys. Much appreciated. What does it mean to live life to the fullest, train to your potential, and perform at your best?
Leave nothing on the table. That's a non-negotiable, is that I strive to be better every day. Because if I'm not on top of my game, how's anybody else going to follow me down the road?
Keep demanding more of yourself to live up to that potential and to stay hungry.
Training is progress. You know, when I look at the word training, I think of steps, baby steps to get somewhere that you want to be. And that is basically your life journey. It's
a mindset in itself, man. It's like, it's not just about, I know that for you, a lot of that's about the physical, but we're constantly in training, whether it's growing our skill sets, whether it's growing our physical bodies, whether it's growing our relationships, whatever. And all of that's a training ground. And that kind of goes back to the mindset that we just talked about.
You underestimate yourself and you don't even start. But then once you start, you often surpass what you thought you could do.
Perform at your best, mate. That's sort of what life is all about. You know, I want to have the knowledge, I want to have the fitness, the health, the ambition and drive that no matter what comes along, when that next phone call comes, I can just say yes. I don't have to worry. Just go and do it.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Live, Train, Perform podcast. I'm your host, Sean Kober, and joining me today is Scott Robinson, who is a personal trainer. He is one of the senior lecturers at the Academy of Applied Movement Neurology, and he is also the creator of Neuroflexibility. Scotty, I'm excited to have you on the podcast, mate. You're an absolute wealth of knowledge. I've been following you for a number of years, and I met you a couple of years ago at one of the AMN retreats. As I said, mate, you're an absolute wealth of knowledge, and you're one of my go-to guys when I want to look at specific content related to the brain. So, mate, welcome to the podcast.
Mate, thanks for having me. As I said, mate, you've been doing some pretty special things, and mate, I'm excited just to get a start, just to get a bait to get on the podcast and have a chat. So, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Mate, your Instagram has absolutely blown up over the last year or so, and we just spoke about it a little bit offline, but for the listeners, Scott is the brain guy on Instagram. You post some incredible content that is very easily digestible, which I totally appreciate, mate. You make complex topics so it comes across relatively simply so my brain can actually understand it and absorb it. So, mate, congratulations to you for being able to do that. But let's talk about how that came about. Talk about your Instagram first, give people a little bit of an understanding of what it's all about, and then we'll talk about that journey of how you got to that point. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I am the brain guy on Instagram and Facebook, and really how that came about is, as I said, working with the Academy of Applied Movement Neurology, and yeah, we were basically doing. I was full-time personal training and doing applied movement neurology with clients all the time, and so that was making up about 50% of my work, 50 with the brain, 50% with clients doing physical work and movement, a lot of rehabilitation stuff. And so I started creating. It just kind of came easily. It just fit. You know, it was like as soon as I dived into that education, it was mind-blowing. It was just an incredible rabbit hole of information, and it was a completely different way of looking at the body. But it just made sense. It just really made sense and fit. And I was just, it's like that. I remember describing to David Fleming, who's the creator of that system, saying, I remember remarking to him a number of times saying, I feel like I've found myself in your system. it's like just this whole thing of navigating neurophysiology and all these different brain circuits, and it just makes sense. So, and it was kind of one of the only times in my life I could say that I've just experienced that consistently, that flow state of it all just makes sense, and I can see where this is going. I experienced it a couple of times as an athlete, and it was fleeting and it was amazing when it happened. But this obviously just fit really well for me. So, as you said, we were doing some retreats, and that's where you and I first caught up, on a retreat in Thailand in 2018. And then it was literally after a different retreat in Bali in 2020 that the world just changed, because that's when the current situation with health sort of really kicked off and was taking a grip, and things in Australia really shut down, and a change had been coming for me for a while, and it just really became clear that it was time to kind of step up and be the brain guy, just literally do this full time and just actually help. So gyms were closed, and I kind of left personal training pretty much behind. I still see a couple of clients, and I still do movement with people that come to see me when, face to face when that's required. But I'm just full time in this space now. And if I'm honest, if I'm 100% honest about it, I was just trying to be cool and helpful, posting information on social, and I could see the profound and life-changing and miraculous results that I'd get with people one-on-one. And I never really believed that I'd be able to help like that, just posting information. I was kind of the throwaway information I was giving on social. And it wasn't until Christmas this last year, just gone, I just received, it was like an avalanche of all these direct messages from people telling me how much their lives had changed from all the information that I put out and what a difference it had made. And it really blew me away. And then when I realized, wow, I'm actually making a difference, like, okay, well, now I want to give more. So now it's kind of give to live, just give and, just give, be as helpful as you can. And I think then, funnily enough, adopting more of that attitude is certainly when more people jumped on board, and the page kind of really blew up, and it's much bigger now than it was previously. But I just try and do that. I just literally just try and give, and some people take that information and then want more, and they come and see me for a one-on-one. Other people just take that information and do whatever's right with it for them. So that's pretty much where we're at. Just trying to help, just be cool and helpful, but maybe on a different level than when I first started.
You provide some amazing content, mate, and I really appreciate it. And there's definitely a number of posts that I've pushed off to my clients as well, regarding things that we've spoken about in client calls and things like that. And then all of a sudden something of yours pops up, and I'm like, boom, all right, that's like how I explained it. Probably not quite as detailed as Scotty has. All right, but that makes a lot of sense. I'll send that through to my clients. So I really appreciate it, man. Let's talk about the Applied Movement Neurology. So as you said, I met you on a mastermind retreat in Thailand a number of years ago. And I was actually on that retreat whilst I was going through my AMN level 1 practitioner course. So I thought I'll go on this retreat. I'll kind of use it to accelerate my learning, my knowledge. And I got there, man. I was completely out of my depth. I was like, what the fuck? Where am I? Who are these people? It was incredible, man. And it definitely opened my eyes to a lot of components that I was missing when it came to coaching, particularly relating to the brain. So let's talk about Applied Movement Neurology. How did you get involved with that system? And for the listeners, can you explain what AMN is?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll tell you what, first, for the listeners, let's just share a little bit of your experience, because I'll give you the other side of it, because being a lecturer, being a presenter on that retreat when you turned up, I have to say, so the other guys there was some chat, because it was an advanced level retreat. And, and it basically in that system, there's level 1, 2, 3, and then there's more advanced applications. And so things were kind of at the level of the more advanced applications, people who'd done level 1, 2, and 3. And you're talking 2 to 3 years study kind of thing to get there, and like literally studying the brain and how complex that can be. And I used to be a fighter, I was an athlete, and I used to travel around the world on my own, just going to all these competitions, and people used to just kind of be really just marvel at it and go, like, I can't believe you do that stuff. And I always had the attitude that, like, mate, well, I'm not going to die wondering. You've got to have a go, back yourself. Like, you just have to back yourself, And I remember when you turned up, because I didn't know you from Bar of Soap, and one of the other guys who was running it said, like, this guy Sean's turned up. Like, he's literally just signed up for level 1. He hasn't even done level 1 yet. And he's like, this is like, what's going to happen? And I just thought, like, mate, back yourself. That's awesome. Like, good on you. And, mate, and I've got to say, like, I really appreciated on that retreat how, you know, you could see it was challenging, but, you know, you were there, had a really good attitude, just kept your mind open, which is so much about what life is all about. Just have an open mind, absorb what you can, take what fits, you know, add what's yours, discard what you don't need, Bruce Lee philosophy, and off you go, you know. And, mate, I had such a world of respect for what you did out of that, because there's a lot of people would have been completely daunted by that experience. And, you know, and I could see you took it on and you got some really good stuff out of it, you know. Like, would have been some stuff you missed, but there was some really great stuff that you definitely got, and that was amazing. So how I came into applied movement
Thanks, man.
neurology.
I appreciate it. I actually failed the exam 3 times before I ended up passing, man. But yeah, no, I appreciate that, mate.
But mate, well, look, that's the thing. Back yourself. Don't die wondering. You know, you just have to have a go. You know, and look, if you're going to be in the fight game, mate, I love it's the Sugar Ray Leonard quote. You know, like, the one thing, you know, if you're going to be a champion, like, you have to be able to believe in yourself when no one else will, you know, and like when you can do that, you qualify, you know, and that's awesome. So for me, how I came into applied movement neurology and really how this whole journey started. So as I said, I was an athlete in Taekwondo, and this is the old school Taekwondo, not the current one that's in the Olympics. And, you know, world of respect to everyone who's doing that now and goes to the Olympics, and it's wonderful, but just back in the day, it was different, you know, and it was kind of full contact and a lot of KOs, and it was hard. I literally,
brutal.
Yeah, the first international I went to, I witnessed a guy get killed, and I was just like, wow, like, this is pretty full on. It's very different now. So anyway, how I came into it was I was a personal trainer, and I had that athlete's mindset. I'd retired from fighting, but I still had that mindset of just want to be the best. Like, I want to be, whatever I'm doing, I want to apply myself. I've invested years into this level of dedication and focus that made me an athlete, and I want to be the best at this. So I was doing a lot of rehabilitation work, and it dawned on me that I was doing a lot of physical movement. I was moving arms and legs. I was moving limbs and peripheral areas of the body, trying to fix long-term movement dysfunction. And, you know, what struck me was that really there was a centrally driven signal. There was something in that control center. There was something on the motherboard of that computer upstairs that was sending an altered signal, and it was creating a different pattern that was maintaining these different movement dysfunctions. And really what I was doing was moving arms and legs, hoping to try and overwhelm that signal via repetition. And when I realized, like, actually, if there is just a switch up there, if there's a switch or something, a button we can press that just changes that pattern, well, that'd be way more efficient, you know, because what was happening to me was, just being a personal trainer of mums and dads, I was seeing people for 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, you know, and I had these really fancy exercises that were great, but it wasn't like working with elite athletes. They wouldn't go home and do them again. They wouldn't go and practice them each week and you know, do the necessary volume of repetition to be able to affect a change. I'd just see them for that 1 hour of a week, yeah, and they would then go and get it wrong for the other 167 hours of the week and then come back and there'd be no change. So I was literally just left thinking there has to be a better way to do this, you know, and then so it was that synchronous moment of just a Facebook ad. I literally saw the two guys from Applied Movement Neurology on a Facebook ad firing a reflex to make a pectoralis muscle become stronger, and this light bulb just went off. I was just like, that's it. That has to be it. That's the answer. You know, and, you know, a little bit like you, my first experience was not the successful one I was looking for. My first experience was I signed up and I basically got their calisthenics program. I thought I was getting the therapy program. I got their calisthenics program, went right through it, got to the end of it. This is not what I'm looking for. But I was sure there was an answer there. So I kept diving back in, and then I found the level 1, the level 2 certificate, like certifications, and went through those. And it was just, you know, I was hanging on by the skin of my teeth trying to get through that first course, barely thinking I was going to be able to do it, really struggling to understand it. It was so complex. And I went to work the very next morning.
That makes me feel better about myself, mate.
Oh, mate. But I remember sitting in that room thinking, looking at all these people thinking, you're not going to get this. You don't get it. I barely get this. This is, yeah. And I just thought, I'm going to work tomorrow morning. I start at 5:30. whatever I understand from this has to be in play tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. Otherwise, it's gone. Like, I just have to start. And I went in and literally first client and then the second client at 6:30, I resolved 2 long-term movement dysfunctions that I hadn't been able to make a dent in over like a 2 or 3 year period, and then they were just gone. I was just like, this is amazing. Okay,
wow.
Right, that's it.
That's buy-in right there.
Yeah, mind blown. And I was like, clients are bought in, I bought in, that's it. Let me sign up for something else so I can study. And that was it. That I was just off and racing after that. So just couldn't get enough of it. And if I had have known how much work and how much study I was going to do before I kind of signed up for that first course, if I'd known how much work was going to be involved, I probably wouldn't have signed up. But it was all just self-motivated and self-driven, and it's this incredible rabbit hole that when you dive into it, you know, there's no bottom, there's no end. You know, there's so much more we don't know about the brain than what we do know. So you just learn every day.
That's a great point, mate. Like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? And if you had looked at, you know, all of the education that you would have been consuming over that time and how much time, energy and effort required to get to the point you're at now, it would have been overwhelming, right?
Yeah, it would have freaked me out. And it's really similar. It's actually really similar to what I get with a lot of people on social media now, because that was my context. My context for understanding and learning back then was really just my experience from school, which, to be honest, was pretty terrible. So, you know, I didn't know how to learn, and I was just really slow. I couldn't read. I just couldn't get myself to read books because it was so slow and frustrating. You know, I always said my greatest achievement at school was academic achievement was that I won the English prize in my repeat year of Year 12. I repeated the HSC, and I won the English prize without having read a book, because I'd worked out at the start of the year, like, this is just not going to happen. I can't read. I have to figure out another way to do this. And so I literally just, in my mind, I made mind movies of the content when they were discussing it in class. I'd never heard of mind movies. I just knew that I was good at movie quotes. I thought, like, what if I turned into a movie? I might be able to remember it. And so I did that. I thought, I'm just going to commit to asking really stupid questions. I don't care how stupid I look. I'm just going to ask the questions if I need things to get clarity and get some understanding. I'll write it down. You know, I'm good at public speaking. I'm really good at creative writing. And then I'll just try and zero in on a few of those little quotes that you need to make it look like you know what you're talking about when you write an article, when you write an essay. And I won the English prize. And that was literally like I was a kid. The first time around, I was doing English in the class with all the kids who were speaking it as a second language, because I was just that bad. You know, I just couldn't read. But this is the thing with neurology. It really is. There's frequencies in learning. There's different frequencies. There's visual frequency. There's auditory frequency. There's kinesthetic frequency. You've even got olfactory, like your smell frequency, and different words have different connotations to them. And a lot of those frequencies will cause stress. They'll cause stress on the brain. And so that's why if you read a book, some authors you can just gobble up and you'll just love, and you'll read every book that author's ever written, and then you'll try and read something else and you find yourself just being stuck, or you're just distracted, or you just can't, information doesn't go in because the brain's experiencing a level of stress. So I was experiencing that, I think, with probably nearly all frequencies, and I had no idea what was going on. And then this concept in neurology we talk about is redundancy. And redundancy is just having multiple different pathways that are not necessary, but there's extra pathways to the same information. So what I was doing, I didn't understand this at the time, but what I was doing was I was creating visual, like imagined pathways to that information when I was creating mind movies, and I was creating auditory pathways by listening what was going on. And I was just creating all these different pathways that just were, the information was able to reach the memory and actually be able to be there, sit, be processed and be understood, be retained. Whereas the stress that was being caused by those other frequencies from just trying to read it and absorb it from literature, that information those pathways were just not being accessed. So yeah, I look back at it now and I'm still very proud of what I did. I didn't understand what I was doing at the time, but it highlights the fact that literally anyone can learn. You know, anybody can learn. It's just we just have blockages that we potentially just accept, and then we create limiting beliefs saying I'm a slow learner, or, you know, I'm not smart, or all these other things that are just not true, but we create, and then we really reinforce those blockages as a result. So yeah, that was my experience in learning in school.
That's a great point, mate. Like, you figured out how you learn. You hacked the system to find what worked for you, to be able to one, absorb this information, but then be able to retain it. So that's something I want to talk about, is like the brain is constantly making its best guess via all of the senses, right? We get this sensory input, it all comes together in the brain, and the brain creates its best guess of what everything is being, or how it's perceiving the world. So let's discuss that for a moment. You know, how important is it to be in tune with your sensory input so that you can kind of understand that what you're seeing or how you're perceiving the world is simply that. It's just a perception. It's not your reality.
Yeah, it is. And it's unique. It's unique unto you. No two people will be in the same situation and perceive the situation exactly the same. It's your perceptions that create your reality. So if everybody's having a unique perception, and then everybody, even in that exact same situation, you've got two people side by side, they'll have their own perceptions, but they'll also have different ideas about that situation, about what's happening. And so no two people will experience the same situation exactly the same, which is also to say that no two people will experience the same reality. So everybody's creating their unique individual reality, which means we're potentially talking about just an infinite number of different realities, really. So I believe that it's actually really important. Probably the most important thing is to understand your sensory feedback, be clear about the information that you are getting. And then when you can transduce the sensory information that you're receiving from the environment and from other people, when you can make sense of that and you can organize it and you're just clear about it, well, then you've actually got some information to work with. You know, if there's entropy, like if there's chaos in that information, if you're struggling to sort of make sense of it, struggling to put order to it and organize it, then you're just not going to be able to make effective or at least consistent decisions about, you know, the information, the perceptions that you're having. So I think the thing to kind of realize, like we said, is that, you know, we're interpreting the world via our senses, but the brain wants to run on autopilot. You know, it doesn't want to calculate, it doesn't want to compute, it doesn't want to figure things out in the moment. It just wants to be able to recognize, you know, see, understand, compartmentalize what that information is that I've got, and then run a program to execute whatever action it is that I need to take. And if you're kind of wondering what that looks like, most people have had the experience of driving to work or driving to drop the kids off at school and then kind of being a bit of a daydream, get there and not even remember the trip and just think, oh God, did I run someone over? Like, what happened? You know, and your brain's literally just taking in the information and it's all familiar. So you can switch off and daydream. And until something that's unfamiliar, something novel, something out of the box, like a kid running in front of the car or something jumping out at you, until something like that happens, you just kind of roll along on autopilot, you know, and you're just absorbing everything in your peripheral vision. Cortical focus is kind of dialed out and you're just driving along and really not computing anything. And then, yeah, you can literally arrive at your destination and think, I don't even know what happened. Like, geez, what did I do?
Is this the default mode network
really
that's talked about in neuroscience?
So default mode network runs with on ruminating thought, and it pops up a lot in anxiety and whatnot. And so, yeah, default mode network can be involved, but essentially, when you're dialed out, like those programs, it's the mind is something greater than the brain. And I don't think we can say like the mind is literally in every single cell of the body. Like the subconscious mind, you could say, is the aggregate intelligence of all the intelligence that's in every single cell in the body. So I don't know if we want to sort of just limit it to kind of one brain area, although that brain area will most certainly be involved. But yeah, so essentially, you know, what we're actually looking at is if we can actually pay attention, and what we're talking about is present moment awareness. Like present moment awareness, you have this incredible machine upstairs, this incredible computer that is a quantum field of information, literally processes some like 40 billion bits of information every single second, or is capable of doing that. And if we just allow it to run on autopilot, we just accept the information, we accept those habitual perceptions about the world we're seeing, and nothing changes. We recreate the same experience day after day after day. When we get present, and present moment awareness, how deep do you want to go on present moment awareness? Because it's an amazing topic that can change your life. See if I can tie that off into a beautiful little package in about 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so present moment awareness, where the brain and the nervous system is going to experience its greatest levels of communication is in present moment awareness. Okay, so, and then when we say the brain, and if you're an athlete, if you are in present moment awareness, when you have those higher states of communication, athletes have incredible levels of communication throughout their nervous system because they're the nervous systems, they're the brains that are literally in control of far more in the body and a much greater degree of control in the body. So if you're in present moment awareness, the brain is communicating far more optimally with more areas right throughout the organism. Now, what present moment awareness means is that basically the past, when we look at the past, when people say that time is an illusion, sounds really cool. You sound like you're an enlightened consciousness when you say, hey, time's an illusion. And it's great you can say that, but I really haven't heard anybody be able to explain it to me. So it sounds great to say it as a cliche, but it's rarely explained. So time is an illusion in that if you think the lower level of mind, the subconscious, or some will say the ego will create this illusion of time when we experience a past, we experience present, we experience the future. Now, the past is just a collection of what we've perceived about events that have happened. So it's literally, when we look back in our memory, it's not what's actually happened. It's not what's truly happened. It's what we remember via what we perceived. And even to a degree, science does the same thing. In science, our physical Newtonian 3D-based science doesn't acknowledge the observer effect, which basically means that it doesn't acknowledge that the scientist, just by the very virtue of looking at his own or her own experiment, is affecting that experiment. Mm-hmm. So we don't actually know 100% what happened. So when we look at the past and we draw information from the past to try and figure out what's happening in the present, we're kind of drawing from a false resource. Like, it's to a degree, it's an illusion because it's just our perception, and we have no guarantee about our perception being real, and certainly not being the same as somebody else's. The future is a construct of projections based on the information that we've collected from the past, which again is a collection of our perceptions. So the only time that is real is now. And when we say in quantum physics that the universe exists in an eternal present moment, the only aspect of time that has any link to eternality or any connection to the eternal is now. So when you say that cliche, the only time is now, a lot of people will have a stress response to that and say, oh, that's just airy-fairy stuff. You're just, what you're trying to say is that the future doesn't matter. The reason they experience that is because if you think about taking the past away, people get worried that, well, how am I going to organise the present if I don't have that information?
Because all of that information is what's shaping that.
Doing.
Yeah.
100%. So all that information is what's shaping your experience of the present, but all that information is locking you into this habitual experience of the present. So when you let go of that completely, people get worried that there's going to be chaos. But really, what we experience is love. We actually just experience the beauty of the present moment. And so it's that present moment that is it's kind of the only aspect of time that is actually real. The past, we don't have any guarantees about how real our memories are. You think if something happened to you that was really bad or traumatic, I mean, you've been to war, and some of the experience that you have had that you look on like, brothers in arms and, like these moments where you really, really forge some strong bonding relationships. Like, you're going to look at some of those moments and they might have been hard and tough, but there'll be something that was just really special about it to you. And other moments that were just tragic and really traumatic, over time, via our filters and biases, it's like those moments seem worse, those perceptions kind of shift. So, and what we're doing is if we impose the past on the present, then we continue to shape the present via our perceptions of the past, and we stay stuck in that same experience of life. So that present moment is where you're asking the brain, hey, don't run the program. Brain, just pause, stop the program for a second. What's actually going on? What's true? And then you're dialed in. Then you're listening to your senses. So then you're really taking that information in from the senses. So like what you're saying about really getting good information, good quality information from your senses, that's it. That's present moment awareness. If you're just allowing that past experience to be imposed on the present, then you're looking at the present through the lens of all those subconscious programs that you've created from your past perceived experiences. So it's a deep topic to go into, but really it's like when we say the only time is now, it just means the only time that is actually really truly real is now. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes sense to focus on this. I don't want to focus on an illusion in the past or an illusion in the future. Just focus on now, and the brain will be at its greatest. It's an amazing thing.
That's brain explosion. You made a great point though, mate. Like, I don't suffer from PTSD or haven't had any issues. had, as everyone does, like had my ups and downs a little bit, but, not to extremes. But I've got some mates who suffer from PTSD and have suffered from PTSD quite extreme in the past. And, when I talk to these guys, it comes down to the stories that they tell themselves from something that happened 10 years ago, right? And then they're carrying those stories and how they perceive those certain events and circumstances into their present. And then, those stories are affecting their mindset right now, which then affects their, again, projection into the future. Like, well, I can't change this, so why would I bother doing that, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, if you just change the stories that you tell yourself, you're now changing your perception to, how you look at those events, which then affects you in the present, which then, impacts your ability to change your future and control the outcomes of your future, understanding that what you're doing right now is going to impact where you're moving.
Yeah, 100%. And really what it is, and it's going to sound, it sounds really challenging. If you're in one of those states, then if you're dealing with PTSD, I've seen some amazing things with PTSD. Like, the mind is just limitless. It really is. It's absolutely limitless. Like, I've seen PTSD cases that, emergency services workers, police officers, returned, like vets, completely turned around in 1 or 2 sessions. But you have to be really open and willing to look at that, and that is challenging. Like, you need to be able to connect with the desire for what you want, and that's something that's really easy to lose when you're stuck in those past stories, as you say. But really, what you're looking for, and if anyone is in that state who's dealing with those conditions is listening to this, then what you're looking for is you're looking to just imagine, what would this present moment look like if I had absolutely no information from the past at all? Like, what if the past didn't exist? What if I had no information to run on? Like, what would I be experiencing? And just imagine it. And this is the thing, exactly what you're describing when you're saying that some of your friends are, dealing with these conditions and these states of being. The brain is the greatest virtual reality machine in the known universe. Like, it is absolutely incredible at creating its own reality. So, this is why working with the subconscious mind is so powerful. But it's also why so many people really struggle to get past it, because the brain is just so egotistical that if it believes something, if it believes that I am traumatized and I am not safe, it holds that belief. If it goes out into the world and its experience of life doesn't match with that belief, it won't look at the world and go, oh, geez, I better reevaluate this. This actually looks safer than I thought it was going to be. It doesn't do that at all. It's so egotistical. It will just change the world to fit with its belief. It'll make the world look like a really scary place. So really what we're doing is you're just looking to imagine. Just take yourself out of the past. Try, what does the present look like? Like, just imagine it. Would this present moment look like if I had no information at all about anything in my past? And that might sound really daunting, really challenging, but you only need to be able to do that for a second. You do that for 1 second, you've created new neural pathways. That makes you more capable of doing it the next time for 2 seconds, which then makes you more capable for doing it the next time for 4 seconds. And you can build on that. Like, there's absolutely, even just doing it on your own, there's always hope and there's always a way forward. So that present moment awareness is just such a powerful thing. And it's a really beautiful thing. Like I said, if you can let the past go, the only thing that exists in the present is actually love. It's quite a profound thing when you get there.
Let's pause on the present moment awareness. How can we train ourselves to become present? I did read your post a couple of days ago, I think it was, or maybe it was a while ago, I don't recall, on you basically saying, sometimes when you walk to the fridge and then you get there and you're like, oh, what the fuck am I doing here? I can't remember what I was doing. And you were looking at, things that were going on in your life, and you basically found that, you were going on your phone and just scrolling through social media mindlessly. And then once you realize that, you're like, all right, I'm going to create some intent when I go on there, because then that's going to bring you back to that present moment awareness. Can you speak about that for a moment and give me some tools and the audience some tools for being able to cultivate that skill, because it is a skill?
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually scary, because I thought I was having early onset Alzheimer's. I thought I was losing my memory. I was experiencing it quite regularly. I was just, like I said, going to the fridge and getting there and going, I don't even know what I'm doing here. What's going on? And I thought there was things wrong with my memory, but thankfully, as I said, I actually have the skills to be able to go and check and find out what's going on. I found out there was nothing wrong. I had just trained myself not to pay attention. I'd literally like just use social media and just scrolling through Facebook and Instagram posts and literally just scrolling through at high speed, waiting for something to grab my attention. I was just training myself not to pay attention. So there's nothing wrong with the memory circuits. I just trained myself not to take any information in, and I'd just become that mindless zombie, when I was on social media, and then that was playing out in other areas of my life. So, really. So what we're looking at, a really simple thing is just slow right down. Actually, if you're going to be on social media, actually slow down and read posts. So don't allow yourself to scroll. Slow down and pay attention to a little bit of detail and say, like, right, I'm going to notice 3 details about a photo. Or if it's a video, I'm going to notice three sounds. I'm going to actually read the caption on these things, and you may find that actually gets you off social media a little bit faster because it's not the experience that you're kind of looking for. But you can set it up at the start of the day. So the first thing, and this is really powerful because a lot of people wake up, use their phone as their alarm, wake up, it's the first thing they look at. So number one, you're kind of throwing your circadian clock off because you're having the first light of the day is that false light from the phone. And it'd be much better it's a really, really simple practice. Try and get at least 2 minutes of natural light. Try and make your first light of the day just natural light. So you want full spectrum sunlight. You want to actually be able to get outside and experience all spectrums as the sun goes from sunrise all the way up to, to the peak of its altitude in the sky. Because the different frequencies of light are going to change as the sun changes position in the sky. But you want to get out and get that early morning light because that's kind of confirming for your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the master clock in your circadian biology, or it's the master clock in your chronobiology. You have more than just one set of rhythms. We've got untold number of rhythms in the body, but the one we know about most is circadian, your daily rhythm. And so you kind of set that clock up. You set that clock up to be running truly. And nearly every cell in our body has some rhythmicity about it. It has a clock about it, and they're tied into the master clock. And when every single cell is running on the same time, kind of makes sense. The organism functions appropriately. If you have different organs, different cells, different parts of the body that are running in a different time zone, your system cannot function optimally. So that light at the start of the day is actually really important. And it does a number of different things, but try and get at least a couple of minutes of natural light before you look at your phone. The next thing you could do is actually don't look at your phone. Make a rule that you don't look at it for the first hour. If you can try and go your first hour, just get up, have breakfast, go and do a 5-minute meditation, do a 20-minute meditation, write down your to-do list for the day. Just get clear about what you actually want to get out of the day. So what you're doing is you're setting up your intentionality. You're setting up your brain. You're setting up the program for, right, what do I want to get out of these situations that I'm going to be presented with today? And what am I looking for? I'm looking for learning. I'm looking for growth. What am I looking for? And you may just note down a bunch of tasks. And the thing is, those tasks will be in your awareness through the day and you'll be a much better chance of actually getting them done. And then once you've done that, after your first hour, you've had a little meditation, you've eaten breakfast, you've brushed your teeth. You might try and do a few things with your non-dominant hand because that actually makes you pay more attention. Again, you're actually paying attention, being present in the moment. So you can do tasks, try and brush your hair with your non-dominant hand, brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Again, really focuses your brain to pay more attention. And then once you've done that, and by the time you get on the phone, you've kind of got the neurotransmitters set up for the day as to how you actually want them to be. And you have in your mind running the programs you want to be running to be present and get the things done that you want to get done. When you look at your phone, first thing, you hijack the circadian biology, but you kind of hijack those neurotransmitters and you hijack the mind. And we just get wired into looking for that dopamine hit. And so really, really short-term focus, really looking for that instant gratification, really not looking for anything, long game, not looking for anything that we're looking to get out of the day. We're just looking like, where's our next hit? And we're going to kind of be mind numb, as we go through the day looking for it. And so if you want to test it, definitely try one day on, one day off and just see with the two, see how you go and you see which days you're way more productive on. It's if you do it, literally just set that first hour up effectively. The difference, the comparison is really stark. It's actually just simple tips and they're really effective. Absolutely, mate. That is the hour of power. You literally just rattled off my morning routine, by the way. I see you there. See you sitting there all smugly looking like you're at the head of the class. Well done, mate. Yeah, give myself a little clap. No, that's great, mate. And tying back into what we were talking about before, those senses, your
circadian rhythm is guided by your senses. You know, that light spectrum hits your eyes and that creates a physiological response of, you know, producing certain chemicals and hormones and et cetera, we're literally just getting the physiology aligned and getting everything working like a well-oiled machine. As you said, everything works together, right? So if some of those systems are out of whack, then it's not going to be working like a well-oiled machine. Everything's going to be clunky. You're not going to be, your energy levels are going to be a little bit off. Your, you know, everything's going to be a little bit out of whack, which is not going to get you running smoothly. It's not going to get you thinking clearly. So no, I think that's great advice, mate. Let's talk about the difference between hardware and software when it comes to the brain.
Okay, so hardware, software, we talk about the hardware being all of the neural circuits, neural pathways. So literally all the hardwired structures that are in the brain. So the brain, you have something like 86 billion neurons in the brain. That's part of the hardware. Between those neurons, there are anywhere from 10,000 up to 40,000 different connections between neurons, which is just means there's an absolutely just astronomically high number of different connections between neurons in the brain. So that's all the hardware, and we can create new ones. We can create way more new connections between neurons. We can actually create new neurons as well, which is also an amazing concept to think about. That's our hardware. We all wire about 50% the same. So because you think every experience that you have, you're going to create new connections around that experience as you try and understand it and you try and encode that information. So your life experience is very different from mine and very different from the next person and the next person and so on and so forth. And so those experiences that you've had will have created a unique profile of connections within the brain. So we say we all wire about 50% the same. And then that other 50% is really down to our life experience and the different programs that we run, the parental software that we run, because our different parents give us different information and we subscribe to their beliefs because they're the authority figures in our lives. And, you know, certainly our different teachers and our friends and all of that sort of stuff. All of that literally reshapes these different programs. And it's those programs that we kind of call the software. So the software is literally the firing patterns and the way that those different electrochemical signals and electrical signals fire throughout the brain and the different programs that we have stored. So if you look at the subconscious mind, we can say that thought, when it reaches the subconscious mind, thought instantly becomes a belief. So a thought in the subconscious mind is a subconscious belief. Reason for that is we say the subconscious mind is a lot like a child's mind. It's like a little kid. It doesn't think critically. It doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It literally just accepts. If information reaches the subconscious space, it's a lot like a little kid. It just accepts. So if you look at a little child and mum and dad say, "Oh, you're just a lovely little child, aren't you? So caring, so kind," that child completely believes it because they're not arguing. They're not thinking critically about that information. They're just accepting what's said, and that gets laid down as a new program. So thought that reaches the subconscious space is a subconscious belief. Now, those beliefs write programs. Those programs dictate our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviors, our feelings, our preferences, our biases, our physiological states of being. They dictate our movement patterns. They dictate so much throughout our life. And so I'm going to assume, so your vocation, doing what you do and being as amazing as you are at it, I'm going to just give you an example of that in an athletic sense. And so in my lifetime, my father was an incredible distance runner. Probably should have gone to 3 Olympic Games. You know, in the end went to none because he literally just went to the States on a scholarship and just got ruined, you know, with injuries and whatnot. But ran some just unbelievable times, and you know, and I, as a little kid, infatuated with that. I thought I was going to be a distance runner just like my dad. Wanted to be just like dad. And so I saw myself as a distance runner, saw myself as this incredible endurance athlete. And I had a big engine. You know, I could run and run and run, and I just wouldn't get tired. And I saw myself as the slow twitch athlete. And I never made it in athletics. I did okay, you know, made state, made nationals, did a bunch of things, went overseas, but I never really, wasn't a world beater. And I wanted to be a world beater, so I ended up switching sports. And when I found Taekwondo and I found a different coach, and I still remember the moment, and this is the thing with the subconscious. When you are suggestible, that's when you can get information into that subconscious mind and you can change the software. So a coach, someone who is really trusted, really respected, that athletes listen to. When a coach speaks in an impassioned voice and impassioned sense, that information can really reach the subconscious. And so you can put this really powerful information in as a coach that can change the athlete. So you kind of need to make sure that you're careful about what you say. You're 100% genuine, and you just don't give them falseness, because you'll retain that power and that relationship with that mind that you're working with. So this particular coach of mine, he called me over to his house for a barbecue one evening, and sat me down after dinner and just had a chat and just literally just laid out on the table my whole future and just said, look, mate, stop stressing, stop worrying. You're going to be Australian champion. You're going to go overseas. You're going to win all these comps. You're going to do this, that, and the other thing. You're going to beat all these guys that you're worried about. And the words that just absolutely dropped my jaw to the floor was, he just said, I remember he said, you got all the natural talent and you got all the fast twitch muscle fibers that you need. Like, you're going to do amazing things. And I just thought, fast twitch muscle fibers? Like, are you kidding? Like, I don't have a single one of those. I'm the slow twitch guy. And he found it. He literally got my brain looking for these fibers. So they were there. I just wasn't using them. My brain wasn't accessing them. You know? And I actually ended up becoming one of the fastest guys in the division because this guy believed in me, gave me that belief. My brain started looking for those fast twitch fibers, and they were available when I started to kick and punch, and my whole game changed. And
so you kind of programmed yourself.
Thing. So that
you programmed yourself to think that you were slow twitch because you had an engine, you were endurance based at that stage, and then he was like, he saw you training, and was like, oh, this guy's got some fast twitch fibers, and he said that to you, and then you started looking for those fibers and started training in that manner. That's crazy, man. It's
an amazing thing. So it is what you think. So this is the saying is, seeing is believing. It couldn't be more false. So seeing is believing is something that everybody says. You will be able to perceive the things that your brain believes are there to perceive. So the things that your subconscious mind believes are there for your visual cortex to be able to transduce and interpret, that's what you'll end up seeing. And it's like what you believe. So when you believe it first, then you'll be able to see it. So it's like when we talk about those states of communication in the nervous system, my brain couldn't see those fast twitch muscle fibers. So I was going to training. Coach was saying, kick as fast as you can. I was kicking, and consciously I was frustrated because I was really slow. Right, so I was frustrated, but my brain, which was running the program, I am a slow twitch athlete, my brain was looking at that and going, no, that's right. No, we're sweet. That's the belief. That's the program. No, that's exactly what we expect. Whereas when he changed the program to I'm a fast twitch athlete, and then I went and kicked and it was really slow and I was still frustrated, my brain looked at that and just went, that's not right, because we're a fast twitch athlete. Like, it's got to be faster than that. And all of a sudden, like, speed started to improve, and look, he gave me the appropriate drills and the training techniques as well, but it was 100% the mind understanding that, seeing that completely changed the picture. So it's really powerful stuff, and that's the power of changing that subconscious mind. When you change that software, you start running different programs. The output is completely different. So, and as a coach, if you're an authority figure, if you're a trusted authority figure, you've got a lot of influence. You've got a lot of power, over your athletes to change those programs. So understanding that is such a powerful thing, and any good coach will probably have had those moments that they'll be able to tell you that you give athletes those words and they become like self-fulfilling prophecies, and it's like, but that's what's happening. You're shifting those programs, and then the athlete just goes and makes it happen.
That's a great point, mate. That ties into what I was speaking about before with my mates with PTSD and the stories they tell themselves, right? Like, I looked at certain events that they went through as well, and I just reframed how I told myself that story. And I was like, well, what lessons can I take away from that? And, that changes your perception, that changes that program, right? So then you can use that program to benefit you in the future or in the present moment, which is going to impact your future rather than, negatively impact you. Yeah, that's incredible stuff, mate.
100%. And can I just say, so what you just said there is actually really powerful, really key, and it's a beautiful strategy. So if anybody wants to take a leaf out of Coach Cope's book, that's like a really awesome thing to do. So what you just said, traumatic situations, stressful situations, and you looked at it and just said, well, hang on, what lessons can I take out of that? What growth is available for me? Like, how can I reframe that? Can I look at it differently? So think of this. Depending on the level of mind you're at, if you're existing in duality, and duality is a lower level of mind where we see pairs of opposites, everything's positive or negative, right? If we're in duality, then really all events are neutral. If we're living holistically, then everything's perfect. And it's like basically that's but neutral, perfect. There's no positive or negative. So you can say all events are neutral until someone comes along and judges it with an incomplete awareness. And when we judge it with an incomplete awareness, we're judging it with the brain. Judging means that we're drawing on past information, and judgment becomes impossible without the past. So if we're judging things, we have to be drawing on information from the past so we can make sense of this moment and then apply a judgment. And a judgment will be some level of rejection. And remember, the brain has a negativity bias. So it's always going to err towards that side of negative and see more negative than the positive. And so like we just said, your visual cortex or your senses are going to perceive, they're going to transduce the information that the brain and the programs believe is there to perceive. So if we're inherently negatively biased, then we're going to get more of that information. So when you look at a situation and we think all events are neutral, if we actually look at it instead of just jumping at the negatives that seem glaringly obvious, and we say actually, there's growth here available. There's what am I learning out of this? Who is this affecting in a positive way? How is this affecting me? Where's the meaning? The meaning isn't available here. The meaning might be available decades down the track to this moment. And then if I can just leave that event neutral, I can actually take the growth and the learning out of that. I don't get stressed, and I can actually just be calm and be with it. So be with what is. So the question that I get clients to ask is when people are really stressed and really trying to judge a situation really negatively, and traumatic events from war is right up there. If you can just ask yourself, you look at the situation and you say, okay, the universe is perfect. All situations are neutral, and I know all situations are neutral just because they are, or I know this is perfect because the universe is perfect, so therefore this moment must be perfect. I can just, whatever I need to say to accept that, and then look at it and say, okay, do I have full, complete, and whole quantum awareness? Quantum awareness means all quantum everything that's entangled to this moment over distance, over time, every person that's somehow involved in this situation or not, every possible thing that is involved in this moment. Do I have full awareness over all of those things and how they're being affected by this moment throughout the course of eternity? Because remember, the meaning to what's happening now in that traumatic incident might not be available for decades. It might not even be available in this lifetime. So if we ask the question, do I have all the information? I'm trying to judge this moment. Do I have all the information? Do I know how this is affecting everybody throughout the entire course of time? And if the answer comes back no, as it's going to be for most people, well, then you kind of have to look at it and go, well, how can I possibly judge this? How can I possibly judge this moment effectively? I can't actually judge it effectively. So that means I've got really no choice than other to just sit with it and be with what is, which means come back to that present moment awareness. And then I can sit there and go, okay, well, where's the meaning? Where's the growth? Where's the learning? What makes this moment significant? And remember, the brain hates an open loop. And this is kind of like reverse engineering anxiety or reverse engineering OCD. What you're doing is creating a question that's going to drive the brain mad when you say, well, where's the learning in this? Where's the growth in this? I know the situation's perfect, but I just can't see why right now. That's going to annoy the hell out of the brain. You're basically just throwing a hand grenade and say, off you go, brain, deal with that. Go and find the answer for me. And you're putting this amazing computer to work for you, but for a good cause, rather than just spiraling yourself out of control. So what you just said was awesome, because that's 100% the process. Is just reframe it, look at it. How could I look at this differently? Where's the growth? Where's the learning? There must be something in this. And you just what you did is you gave yourself permission to allow yourself to just be with that moment. And then, well, funnily enough, you didn't find yourself, chronically traumatized. It's beautiful what you've done.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I think that comes down to my NLP, neuro-linguistic programming course that I did, which is, so powerful, man. It's something I talk about on the podcast all the time. But I like what you just said then about, the brain doesn't like an open loop. So if it does have an open loop, it's going to look for an answer. And if it can't find an answer, it's going to create an answer. And you actually, how you speak to yourself and how you manage and organize your thoughts is going to determine what sort of outcome that your brain comes up with, what sort of answer it comes up with, whether it's going to be a positive answer or a negative answer. Now, something that this is a quote that I took from your social media again, it takes a conscious mind to change an unconscious mind. That I think that nice and neatly ties up everything we just spoke about.
It does, yeah. And it speaks to neuroplasticity, and it speaks to adult neuroplasticity. So kids have what we call passive neuroplasticity, which basically means kids can learn like sponges. You can literally just take a kid out to a playground. They've never done monkey bars before, and they look at one person do it and they just jump up and do it, and like they literally just absorb information. I laugh at it. My little boy is 9 and he's an athlete. Like that's who he is. He's just wired for it, loves it, sits in front of YouTube all day looking at athletics videos. And my wife and I we've since stopped, but we were saying to him for quite a while, going like, mate, at some point you are going to actually have to go out and run. Like you can't just do it all on YouTube. And he's just like, no, I got this. We stopped saying that after he went to his regional carnival and literally he jumped a 60 centimeter long jump PB because he's been watching over and over again the epic duel between Carl Lewis and Mike Powell, in 1991 where they were jumping long jump world records. And I've got photos of him and he's literally jumping with his arms all up and then curling and throwing himself forward, tucking forward, exactly the same technique as these guys are doing, like as an 8-9-year-old. And he's gone out and jumped this enormous personal best, but he's just absorbing it. It's just this passive neuroplasticity. By about the age of 25, we typically lose that. And so we need to pay attention. So if we're going to change things, you actually have to pay focused attention to things. And so it's not until you're actually focused on what you're doing and applying, because then you're setting up the chemical environment in the brain to actually create new synaptic connections. And so via acetylcholine largely, but also dopamine as well. When we're actually paying attention in those states of focused attention, we can create those new connections between neurons, and then we can we can encode new information. So ways to do that are novel stimuli. Like we always say, the only brain that changes itself is that brain that's paying attention. And to get it to pay attention, if you give the brain the same stimuli over and over again, it becomes a bit like that drive to, dropping the kids off or drive to work, where the brain just goes, I know what to expect here.
Yeah,
and
it goes, I need to do this. I need to do this, and it's got that blueprint already. It just fires that blueprint and doesn't pay any attention.
It's already got the program. Yep. 100%. So it's exactly the same. If you're a coach and you will have tried to coach people like lunges or squats and everything, you go and ask them to do a squat. You show them some special technique. If they've already been squatting for a few years, their technique may be terrible, but they're looking at it, and unless you're throwing different stimuli and really barking at them to actually pay attention, focus on what I'm doing and really try and replicate this specific pattern, their brain's looking at that and already just going, oh yeah, I've got that squat thing. Mm-hmm. And then they just step up and do it terribly.
Yep.
And nearly all coaches will have seen that, and so I go back to the old Paul Chek story with that one. And he used to say that he was a gunnery sergeant in the US military. And he said he used, he was teaching at the rifle range, and he always said he loved getting a hold of female recruits and teaching them how to fire a rifle far more than male recruits, because, the girls would turn up and go, I don't know how to do this. Just show me. Whereas he said the guys would all turn up with John Wayne syndrome. And so they've been watching the cowboy movies their whole life and go, I know how to do this, And so he said it was far more. There he had an existing program that needed to be broken down. So novel stimuli in movement, or just, novel stimuli, adding a layer of complexity to what you're doing. And again, that can be auditory. It could be sound, could be noise. You could be adding a level of rhythmicity. You could putting a metronome to what you're doing, and just forcing, or putting a consequence. The things that we need, for neuroplasticity are attention, urgency, and alertness. So, playing games and putting a consequence on things. Like in the fight game, like I used to go to Asia, and you get hit or, get whacked with a bamboo cane if you got something wrong. Like that was a pretty significant consequence, and like really made you focus to pay attention and get it right. But anything that you can do that is literally going to get the brain to pay attention means that you're going to have a brain that's actually engaged and actually trying to change itself. And again, that's really powerful.
That's amazing, mate. Just to start wrapping up the conversation, what are some resources that you can point people towards? I know as you're speaking, as we've gone through this conversation, I'm thinking of a couple of books that came up for me, like, The Power of Habit and creating consistency with, certain things that we do, creating those programs, and also Thinking Fast and Slow. What else came up? I think there was something else came up that I don't quite remember. But do you have any recommendations on resources that people can go to if they want to learn a little bit more about this stuff? Books, podcasts, audiobooks, etc.
Yeah,
courses?
I reckon the Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff is all a really great place to start. You know, his stuff, I think, is similar to mine, or my stuff is similar to his, is in like he's really good at breaking down complex topics and making it digestible so people can actually understand it. And he talks a lot about those programs that are running and actually trying to switch out from that. So yeah, he's got a bunch of books and he's got a heap of different information out there on social media. Jim Quick is a brain coach in the US who he's got some books and a bunch of other resources out there, and he's always speaking very much at the level of action, you know, like paying attention and the level of like your physical actions and just little hacks, little things that you can do throughout the day. They're really great resources to look at, and I think like really good entry level resources to step into and look at.
I've got his book. I haven't read it yet, but it's on the list. It's on my Kindle.
the Limitless book.
Yes. Have you read it?
Yeah, it's a good book. There's a bunch of really, really good stuff in there, you know, and probably some of the stuff, or, you know, different takes on some of the stuff that we've covered today, you'll find in there. But yeah, I think anything in that space where I find personally, anything in that space where there's personal growth, just got to make a start. And then, you know, if you're inspired by personal growth, as soon as you kind of realize what you're getting out of it, you make that start and it's like, okay, I can't put it down on my way.
Yeah.
You know, so it's those first steps.
Yeah, I love that. The Idiot Brain, that was the other book that I was thinking of, written by a neuroscientist. Makes complex topics really simple. But yeah, mate, I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us and the audience. We've definitely got to get you back on again. For the audience, I spoke to Scotty and I said that I'd love to get him on for 2 to 3 episodes so we can cover off on, you know, the foundations in the first episode and then go into trauma, and dive a little bit deeper into some of those topics we spoke about today in the next episode, and then potentially get him on and make it a little bit more relevant towards, you know, strength and conditioning, movement stuff. So, Scotty, thank you very much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it.
No, mate, thank you for having me. And to anyone in the audience, if you've listened this far and you're still here listening in, then you have my gratitude for your attention. And I certainly hope that you've managed to get some gems out of it. And I'm open for help. So if people want to reach out, if there's something that's really piqued your interest in what we've talked about today, or you feel there's something there to work on, then by all means feel free to reach out. And if I can help, I'm always trying to make myself available.
Where can they find you, mate?
the.brain.guy at Instagram or Facebook is probably the easiest way to go.
Nice. I'll have that in the show notes. Scotty, once again, thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate your time and your knowledge, brother.
Cheers, mate. Thanks again for having me. It's actually really, really cool to get to have the chat finally.
Awesome, mate. Thank you. This episode was brought to you by Swiss8, which is a proactive mental health program designed by veterans, initially for veterans, that has been pushed out to the wider community, that allows you to structure in and schedule their 8 pillars of health and wellness, including nutrition, sleep, time management, discipline, fitness, personal growth, mindfulness, and minimalism. This episode was also brought to you by Be Spunky, which is a male hormone optimization supplement that I've been taking for about 1.5 years, and I absolutely rate. It is a TGA listed nutraceutical, meaning that it's made from all organic produce to help you manage and optimize your stress levels, which in turn increases your ability to improve testosterone production levels naturally. Use the code COBES10 at checkout for your 10% discount. All of those links will be in the show notes. If you got some benefit from this episode, please make sure you pass it off to your friends and family. I'd appreciate any shares on social media platforms. If you tag me or if you share it to your stories, make sure you tag me so I can share that as well. Any 5-star ratings and reviews are much appreciated. Much love, guys. Peace.